The crystal city of Velcetan had stood for 3,000 years. Its towers reached toward the purple sky like frozen music, each one singing in harmony with the gentle winds of Zephyr Prime. Elder Velcetan had watched over this city for most of his long life. The old Zephyrian had seen storms pass over the crystal spires and watched. New generations learned the ancient songs of peace, but now the city burned. Black smoke rose from the broken towers where the harmony had turned to screaming. Velcetan pressed his long fingers against the viewing panel of the underground shelter. His pale blue skin seemed to glow in the dim emergency lighting. Above them, the sounds of destruction continued as the Cathara war machines tore through everything his people had built. How many cities have we lost? He asked the communication officer beside him. His voice came out as a soft whistle, the way all Zephyrians spoke. Even in their darkest hour, their voices could not carry anger or hate. They had never learned how. 7 cities destroyed completely, the officer replied, her 4 arms moving quickly over the control panels. 3 more under attack, the mountain. Settlements are still safe, but the Cathara are moving toward them now. Velcetan closed his large, dark eyes. The Zephyrians had always known they were not fighters. Their world was peaceful, with gentle creatures and mild weather. They had built their civilization around art, music, and learning. When they first detected the Cathara ships approaching their system, they had tried to send messages of welcome, in friendship. The Cathara had answered with weapons. The first attack had come without warning. Massive biomechanical ships had entered their atmosphere and begun releasing swarms of smaller craft. These ships seemed to be alive with metal, and flesh twisted together in ways that made the Zephyrians sick to look at. The creatures inside the ships were worse. They stood twice as tall as any Zephyrian, with thick armor covering their bodies and weapons that could melt through solid crystal. "Elder," another voice called from across the shelter, "we are receiving reports from the outer colonies. Cathara have reached the mining stations on Zephyr 2. They are taking everything. Our people there are." The voice stopped. "They are dead," Velcetan finished quietly. He had seen the recordings from the first attacks. The Cathara did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate or show mercy. They simply destroyed everything that was not useful to them and took what they needed to build more ships and create more soldiers. The shelter shook as another explosion echoed from above. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the emergency lights flickered. Velcetan knew their time was running out. Soon the Cathara would find this shelter, just as they had found all the others. The Zephyrian people, who had never known war or violence, were being wiped out by creatures who knew nothing else. "We heard anything from the other worlds in our system?" Velcetan asked. "Zephyr 4 went silent 2 days ago," came the reply. "Zephyr 3 is still sending distress signals, but their messages are getting weaker. I think they are running out of power." Velcetan walked slowly to the center of the shelter where their most powerful communication equipment was kept. The machine hummed quietly, its crystal components glowing with soft light. It could send messages across their entire star system and even beyond, to other star systems far away. They had used it to share their discoveries and art with other peaceful species they had met over the centuries. "Can this reach beyond our system?" he asked the chief technician. "Yes, Elder. It can reach very far. But we have never tried to contact species outside our local group. We do not know if anyone would receive our message or understand it." "How far?" Velcetan asked. The technicians for arms moved over the controls as she calculated. "With full power, we could reach perhaps 100 star systems. Maybe more if we boost the signal." Velcetan looked around the shelter at his people. Scientists, artists, teachers, children, all of them looking to him for answers he did not have. The Zephyrians had never developed weapons because they had never needed them. They had no armies because they had never faced enemies. Their greatest achievement was not technology or conquest, but the fact that they had lived in peace. For thousands of years, now that peace was ending, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. "Send a message," Velcetan said finally. "Send it to every star system we can reach." "What should the message say?" the technician asked. Velcetan thought for a long moment. "How do you ask for help when you have never needed to ask before?" Do you explain that your entire civilization is being destroyed by creatures you cannot understand or fight? Tell them we are dying, he said. Tell them we need help. Tell them we will share all our knowledge with anyone who can save us. The technician began working on the message. Her fingers moved quickly over the crystal controls, encoding Velcetan's words into signals that could travel across the empty space between stars. The message would include pictures of their world, recordings of their voices, and samples of their art and science. Anyone who received it would know that the Zephyrians were a peaceful people who had never harmed anyone. Message is ready, Elder, the technician said. Should I send it now? Another explosion shook the shelter, this one much closer than before. The lights went out for a moment before the emergency power kicked in. They could hear sounds from above that might have been Cathara soldiers searching through the ruins of their city. Send it to all systems, Velcetan ordered. Use all our power. This may be our last chance. The communication array came to life with a deep humming sound that filled the shelter. Every crystal component glowed brighter as the machine drew more power from their failing generators. The message began transmitting, racing across space. At speeds faster than light, carrying the desperate plea of a dying civilization to anyone who might be listening far away. Across the vast emptiness between stars, the message traveled. It passed through systems where no intelligent life had ever developed. It swept past worlds covered in ice or burning under giant suns. It reached planets where creatures lived and died without ever looking up at the stars. And on one small, blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star, the message was received. Dr. Lisa Morgan had been working the night shift at Earth's Deep Space Communication Array for 3 years. She was used to the quiet routine of monitoring signals from space. Most nights she detected nothing but natural radio waves from distant stars and galaxies. Sometimes she picked up signals from Earth's own satellites or space stations. Very rarely. She found something interesting enough to report to her supervisors, but she had never detected anything like the signal that appeared on her screens at 3:47 in the morning. The pattern was clearly artificial, but it was unlike any human technology she knew. The signal was complex, layered with different types of information, and it was coming from a point in space over 40 light-years away. Lisa sat up straight in her chair and began recording everything. Her hands moved quickly over her equipment. As she tried to capture every detail of the strange signal, as she worked, she realized that part of the transmission contained images. Blurry, strange images that showed crystal cities and tall, thin creatures with pale blue skin. "Oh my God," she whispered as she stared at her screens. After decades of searching, humanity had finally received a message from another intelligent species. And from what she could understand of the images and sounds, these creatures were in terrible danger. Lisa reached for her phone and dialed the emergency number for the Earth Defense Force. Whatever was happening to the beings who had sent this message, she knew that Commander Jake Sullivan and his people needed to know about it immediately. The message from the dying Zephyrians had reached Earth, and everything was about to change. Commander Jake Sullivan stared at the images on the large screen in the Earth's Defense Force Command Center. The crystal cities were beautiful, even in their destroyed state. The tall, blue-skinned creatures in the pictures looked nothing like humans, but their faces showed the same fear and pain that any human would feel when their home was being destroyed.
"How long to get there?"
Jake asked Captain Amy Davis, his tactical officer. "Calculations, again. With our newest hyperspace drive, about 3 weeks, maybe less if we push the engines hard." Dr. Peter Hayes, the base's xenobiologist, was still studying the alien message. He had been working for 12 hours straight, trying to understand every detail of what the Zephyrians had sent. "Commander, I think I understand more about these creatures now. They call themselves Zephyrians, and they seem to come from a world with very low gravity. It's like how thin and tall they are. Their bones must be much lighter than ours." "About these attackers?" Jake asked. "The ones destroying their cities?" Peter switched to different images that showed the Cathara war machines. The biomechanical ships looked like nightmares made real, with metal and flesh twisted together in impossible ways. They call them the Cathara Empire. From what I can understand, the Cathara have been conquering other species for a very long time. They seem to use biological technology, growing their ships and weapons instead of building them. Jake studied the enemy ships carefully. He had spent 20 years in the military, fighting in conflicts all over Earth and in space around their solar system. But he had never seen anything like these alien war machines. Can our weapons hurt those things? Unknown, Amy said honestly. Our plasma cannons and missiles are designed to fight human ships with metal hulls and electronic systems. These bioships might be completely different. The door to the command center opened, and President Helen Carter walked in with her security team. The president looked tired but determined. She had been in emergency meetings with world leaders for the past 6 hours. Ever since Dr. Lisa Morgan's discovery had reached the highest levels of government. Commander Sullivan, the president said, I've just finished talking with the UN, Security Council, and our military leaders. We're going to respond to this alien distress call. Ma'am, we don't know what we're getting into, Jake said carefully. This could be some kind of trap, or we might not be able to help them even if we try. That's possible, President Carter agreed. But we've received a clear cry for help from another intelligent species. If we ignore it and they die, we'll have to live with that choice forever. And if other alien civilizations find out we refused to help, what will they think of humanity? Jake nodded slowly. The president was right. This was bigger than just a military decision. This was about what kind of species humanity wanted to be when they met other intelligent life. What ships do we have available? The president asked. Amy pulled up a list on her screen. The USS Vengeance is our most advanced warship. She's got the newest weapons, the strongest shields, and the fastest hyperspace drive. Captain Kate Rodriguez is her commanding officer, and she's one of our best. How many people can the Vengeance carry? Peter asked. Crew of 400, Amy replied. Plus she can carry 200 Marines and their equipment. Major Ryan Brooks leads the Marine Battalion stationed there. President Carter looked at the images of the dying alien cities one more time. Make it happen, Commander. Get the Vengeance ready and send our people to help these Zephyrians. 3 days later, the USS Vengeance left Earth's orbit and jumped into hyperspace.
Captain Kate
Rodriguez sat in her command chair, watching the stars stretch into lines as her ship traveled faster than light toward the Zephyrian system. She had read all the reports about the alien distress call, but she still found it hard to believe they were really going to meet another intelligent species. Captain, called Lieutenant Tom Wilson from the communications station. We're receiving another transmission from the Zephyrian system. It's very weak. Put it through, Kate ordered. The main screen filled with static, and then the image of Elder Velcetan appeared. The old Zephyrian looked even thinner and more tired than in the original message. Behind him, Kate could see other Zephyrians working frantically at what looked like emergency equipment. Please, Velcetan said in his soft, whistling voice, if anyone receives this message, we are running out of time. The Cathara have found most of our shelters. We've retreated to our moon, but they will find us here soon, we estimate perhaps. 10 days before they break through our final defenses, transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge of the Vengeance in silence. How much time until we arrive? Kate asked her navigation officer. 18 days at current speed, Captain? Kate felt her stomach tighten. They were going to be too late. Can we go faster? We can push the engines to emergency power, the engineer replied over the intercom. But that's dangerous. We might damage the hyperspace drive. Do it, Kate ordered. Those people don't have 18 days. For the next 2 weeks, the Vengeance raced through hyperspace at speeds no human ship had ever attempted. The engines groaned under the strain, and the engineering teams worked around the clock to keep everything running. But the ship held together, and they arrived in the Zephyrian system 3 days earlier than planned. What they found was worse than anyone had expected. My God, whispered Dr. Lisa Morgan, who had insisted on coming along as the team's communication expert. She stared at the main screen, which showed the Zephyrian homeworld. The beautiful crystal cities were gone, replaced by smoking ruins. Strange organic-looking structures had been built over the destroyed areas. Biomechanical ships moved through the atmosphere like giant insects. Captain, I'm detecting life signs on the moon, reported the sensor officer. It looks like a large underground facility. Signal patterns match what we'd expect from Zephyrian technology. Open a channel to the moon base, Kate ordered. A few minutes later, Elder Velcetan's face appeared on the screen again. When he saw the human faces looking back at him, his large dark eyes widened in surprise and hope. "You came," he said simply. "We did not think anyone would answer our call. We're here to help," Kate said. "I'm Captain Kate Rodriguez of the Earthship Vengeance. Can you tell us what's happening down there?" Velcetan's expression grew sad as he looked toward his destroyed homeworld. "The Cathara came 6 months ago. We tried to welcome them as we would any visitors, but they began destroying our cities immediately. We have learned that they do this to many worlds. They take what they need and kill everything else. How many of your people are left?" Dr. Morgan asked gently. "Perhaps 50,000 survivors on this moon," Velcetan replied. "There may be small groups hiding in other parts of our system, but we have lost contact with most of them. Our population was 12 million before the attacks began." The bridge of the Vengeance fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. An entire civilization had been nearly wiped out in just 6 months. "Elder Velcetan," Kate said, "we need to understand what we're facing. Can you tell us about these Cathara? What are their ships like? How do they fight?" "They're unlike anything in our experience," Velcetan admitted. "Their technology seems to be alive. Their ships grow instead of being built. They're soldiers. Are bred for war and seem to feel no fear or pain. We tried to communicate with them, to find some way to make peace, but they do not understand concepts like mercy or negotiation." Major Ryan Brooks leaned forward from his position near the back of the bridge. "What about their numbers? How many ships? How many soldiers?" Velcetan consulted with other Zephyrians off-screen before answering. "We estimate perhaps 200. Large ships and thousands of smaller craft. Their ground forces number in the hundreds of thousands, but they continue to grow more soldiers using our captured resources." Captain Rodriguez exchanged glances with her officers. The USS Vengeance was powerful, but it was just one ship against an entire invasion fleet. "Elder," Kate said carefully, "we want to help your people, but we need to understand something. My species has never encountered yours before, or any other alien species. We don't know what's normal in your part of the galaxy. Do other civilizations ever fight wars like this?" "Wars?" Velcetan seemed confused by the word. "I do not understand this term." Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "Armed conflicts between different groups, fighting with weapons to control territory or resources." Velcetan's face showed shock and distress. "Your species engages in deliberate violence against your own kind." "Sometimes," Kate admitted. "It's not something we're proud of, but humans have fought wars throughout our history. We've learned to be soldiers because we've had to be." The elder was quiet for a long time, clearly struggling with this concept. Finally, he spoke again. "The Cathara are the first violent species we have ever encountered. In our region of the galaxy, all civilizations are peaceful. We trade knowledge and art. We help each other with scientific discoveries. But we have never learned to fight or use weapons for violence. That explains why the Cathara have been so successful," Major Brooks said grimly. "They're attacking civilizations that don't even know how to fight back." Supreme Warcast Thracknell stood in the command chamber of his flagship, watching the feed from his surveillance drones. A new ship had arrived in the system, and it was unlike anything in the Cathara database. The vessel was sleek and angular, built from metals that his scanners could not identify. Most interesting of all, it carried creatures that walked on 2 legs, like the Cathara themselves. "Analysis," Thracknell commanded, his voice a deep growl that echoed through the biomechanical walls of his ship, Sub-Cast. Viarncol approached with data crystals clutched in his clawed hands. "The new ship appears to be from a previously unknown species. They call themselves humans. Initial scans show they are similar to us in basic body structure, but smaller and lacking our natural armor." Thracknell examined the images of the human ship. It was impressive for a species they had never encountered. But the Cathara had destroyed thousands of ships over their centuries of conquest. "How many ships do they have?" "Only one, Warcast. A single vessel against our entire fleet." Thracknell's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. "One ship. These humans must be very foolish or very desperate. Have they attempted to communicate with us?" No, Warcast. They have made contact only with the surviving Zephyrians on the moon base. Our intelligence suggests they responded to the distress signal the prey species sent out. Prepare a standard intimidation display, Thracknell ordered. Send a squadron of biofighters to investigate this human ship. When they see our superior numbers and technology, they will flee like all the others. On the USS Vengeance, Captain. Kate Rodriguez was meeting with her senior officers in the ship's conference room. The table was covered with holographic displays showing the Cathara fleet positions and tactical data provided by the Zephyrians. Their main force is concentrated around the homeworld. Major Ryan Brooks reported approximately 200 large ships, as the Zephyrians estimated. But look at this. He highlighted several smaller craft moving through the system. They have patrol groups scattered everywhere. They're not just occupying the planet, they're controlling the entire star system. Dr. Peter Hayes studied the biomechanical ship designs with fascination and disgust. The Zephyrians were right about their technology being alive. These ships appear to be grown rather than built. Look at these organic curves and the way they're structured. It's like they're giant spaceborne creatures fitted with weapons. Can we hurt them? Asked Lieutenant Colonel Steve Martinez, the ship's tactical coordinator. Unknown admitted Commander Beth Thompson, the naval strategist. Our weapons are designed to penetrate metal hulls and disrupt electronic systems. These bioships might heal damage as fast as we can cause it. Captain. Rodriguez studied the tactical displays carefully. She had commanded the Vengeance for 2 years, but she had never faced anything like this. What about their fighters? Small ships they use for patrols. Those might be easier targets, Beth replied. They seem less heavily armored than the larger vessels. But Captain, we're still talking about fighting thousands of enemy craft with just one ship. Before Kate could respond, the ship's alarm began sounding. Lieutenant Tom Wilson's voice came over the intercom from the bridge. Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have incoming contacts. Kate and her officers rushed to the bridge where they found the crew at battle stations. The main screen showed a group of 12 Cathara biofighters approaching their position. The alien craft moved in formation, but their flight patterns seemed almost random compared to human military precision. They're broadcasting something, reported Lieutenant Sarah Webb from the communications station. It's not aimed at us, though. They're sending the signal in all directions. Put it through, Kate ordered. The screen filled with the image of a Cathara warrior. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick, chitinous armor covering most of its body. Its face was a nightmare combination of insect and reptile features, with 4 eyes and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. Known species. Cathara growled in heavily accented but understandable language. You have entered a system under Cathara control. Your presence here is a violation of our conquest rights. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Kate looked at her tactical officer. How did they learn our language so quickly? They must have intercepted our communications with the Zephyrians, Amy Davis replied. Their translation systems are apparently very advanced. Captain, Dr. Morgan said quietly, I think this might be some kind of standard threat they use against all new species. Notice how generic it is. They're probably used to scaring civilizations into running away. Kate nodded and activated the communication system. This is Captain Kate Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Vengeance. We are here to provide humanitarian assistance to the Zephyrian people. We have no quarrel with you, but we will not abandon civilians who have asked for our help. The Cathara warrior on the screen seemed surprised by her response. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed. This unexpected answer, you would risk destruction for creatures not of your own species. This is illogical. The Zephyrians are weak. Pray, they have nothing to offer you that would justify facing the Cathara Empire. They asked for help, Kate said simply. That's enough. The transmission ended abruptly, and the Cathara fighters began moving toward the Vengeance in an attack formation. Hands battle stations, Kate announced throughout the ship. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat. On the moon base, Elder Vexdalen watched the confrontation through the Zephyrian monitoring systems. Around him, other survivors gathered to witness what might be the last hope for their species. The old elder felt sick with worry as he watched. The tiny human ship facing the approaching Cathara fighters. "Elder," said one of the younger Zephyrians, "should we not warn the humans that resistance is hopeless? The Cathara have destroyed every ship that has tried to fight them." Velcetan was quiet for a moment. "I do not think these humans are like other species we have known. Did you hear how calmly their captain spoke to the Cathara? She showed no fear at all. But Elder, they have only one ship against 12 fighters. And behind those fighters is the entire Cathara fleet," as Velcetan agreed. "But I'm beginning to think that these humans are very different from us. They come from a world where violence is common, where creatures learn to fight from birth. Perhaps one human ship is not as helpless as we think." Back on the Vengeance, the crew was discovering just how different their ship was from anything the Cathara had faced before. The biofighters opened fire first, launching organic projectiles that moved like living creatures through space. The human ship's shields, designed to withstand the electromagnetic storms of Earth's magnetosphere, absorbed the impacts easily. "Turn fire," Captain Rodriguez ordered. The Vengeance's plasma cannon spoke with brilliant flashes of energy. The precisely aimed shot struck 2 of the biofighters, and the alien craft simply disintegrated. There was no explosion, no debris. They simply ceased to exist as the superheated plasma burned through their organic hulls faster than they could regenerate. "My God," whispered Dr. Hayes. "Our weapons are incredibly effective against them. Their biological armor can't handle the heat levels our plasma generates." The remaining Cathara fighters scattered in panic, clearly not expecting such devastating results from the first exchange. They began firing more frantically, but their organic weapons seemed almost harmless against the human ship's defenses. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Tony Adams from the fighter bay, "request permission to launch fighters. Can finish off these scouts before they report back to their main fleet." "Granted," Kate replied, "but be careful out there. We don't know what other surprises they might have." Minutes later, 6 human fighters launched from the Vengeance and engaged the remaining Cathara scouts. The human pilots, trained in 3-dimensional combat around Earth and its moon, flew with an aggressive precision that the biofighters couldn't match. Captain Laura Griffin led the attack, her fighter dancing between enemy fire with maneuvers that seemed impossible. Within 10 minutes, all 12 Cathara scouts had been destroyed. Not a single human fighter had been damaged. Supreme Warcast Thracknell stared at his displays in disbelief. 12 of his biofighters destroyed by a single, unknown ship and 6 small craft. In his 300 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like it. "Warcast, subcast," Cole said nervously. "Perhaps we should send a larger force to investigate these humans." Yes, Thracknell agreed, but his voice was uncertain for the first time in decades. "Send 50 fighters and 2 assault cruisers and analyze everything we recorded from that battle. I want to understand how one ship destroyed 12 of our fighters so easily." As the reports came in from the battle analysis, Thracknell began to realize that these humans were unlike any species the Cathara had ever encountered. Their weapons generated heat levels that could melt through bioarmor instantly. Their ships moved with mechanical precision that organic craft couldn't match. Most disturbing of all, their pilots showed no fear when outnumbered, fighting with a controlled aggression that spoke of long experience with violence. "Subcast," Thracknell said slowly, "what do we know about the world these humans come from?" The second wave of Cathara fighters approached the USS Vengeance like a swarm of angry wasps. 50 biofighters moved in chaotic patterns around 2 massive assault cruisers, each one the size of a city block. Supreme Warcast Thracknell watched from his command ship as his forces prepared to crush the single human vessel that had dared to challenge the Cathara Empire. "This time, we will show them our true power," Thracknell growled to his subordinates. "The humans destroyed our scouts. Through luck and surprise, they will not be so fortunate against our assault cruisers." On the bridge of the Vengeance, Captain Kate Rodriguez studied the approaching enemy force with calm eyes around her. The crew worked at their stations with the practiced efficiency of professionals who had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Analysis," Kate said simply. Commander Beth Thompson pulled up tactical displays showing the enemy formation. Heavy cruisers, approximately 800 meters each. Bioarmor thickness unknown, but estimated to be much heavier than the fighters. 50 escort fighters in defensive formation. They're approaching slowly, probably trying to intimidate us. Weapon status? Kate asked. All plasma cannons charged and ready, reported Lieutenant Colonel Steve Martinez. Missile tubes loaded with our heaviest penetrator warheads. Fighter. Bay reports. Ready for launch. Major Ryan Brooks stepped forward from his position at the Marine Command Station. Captain, request permission to prepare boarding parties. If we get the chance to take one of those cruisers intact, my people can gather intelligence about Cathara technology and tactics. Kate looked at him with surprise. Major, you're talking about boarding an enemy ship during active combat?
Else.
Extremely dangerous. Yes, ma'am, Ryan replied with a grin. That's why they pay us the big money. Dr. Peter Hayes, who had been studying the enemy ships through the sensors, spoke up from his science station. Captain, I'm detecting some interesting readings from those cruisers. Their biosignatures suggest they're not just ships. They're actually living creatures that have been modified for space travel. The fighters might be offspring or smaller versions of the same species. Can we use that information? Kate asked. Possibly. Living creatures have nervous systems, blood circulation, organs that can be targeted. If we can identify their vital systems, we might be able to disable them instead of just destroying them. Kate nodded. The Zephyrians had asked them to save. Lives when possible. Even Cathara lives. Dr. Hayes worked with Tactical to identify potential weak points. Everyone else, prepare for battle. The enemy fleet opened fire while still at long range. Streams of organic projectiles and energy beams reached toward the Vengeance like the tentacles of some deep-sea monster. But the human ship was all ready. Moving, its engines pushing it through evasive maneuvers that made it nearly impossible to target. Return fire, all weapons, Kate ordered. The Vengeance responded with overwhelming firepower. Plasma cannons that could melt through asteroid rock struck the lead assault cruiser, carving deep wounds in its bioarmor. The creature ship let out. A sound that was part scream, part roar, audible even through the vacuum of space, as its biohull transmitted vibrations to nearby matter. Direct hit on Target 1, Martinez reported. Heavy damage to what appears to be their primary weapon. System, but look at this. The damaged areas are already starting to heal. On the main screen, they could see the assault cruiser's wounds closing as new tissue grew to replace what had been destroyed. The regeneration was fast, but not fast enough to keep up with sustained human weapons fire. Keep firing, Kate commanded. Don't give them time to heal. The battle became a deadly dance as the Vengeance moved through three-dimensional space, avoiding enemy fire while pouring devastating attacks into the Cathara ships. The human vessel's shields absorbed hits that would have crippled most other ships, while its weapons carved through bioarmor like a hot knife through butter. Captain, called Lieutenant Tony Adams from the fighter bay. The escort fighters are trying to swarm us. Request permission to launch all fighters and give them something else to worry about. But Kate replied. 12 human fighters burst from the Vengeance's launch bays and immediately engaged the Cathara escorts. The space around the battle became filled with streaking energy bolts and exploding. Biofighters, as the human pilots demonstrated why Earth's constant conflicts had produced the galaxy's most effective warriors. Captain Laura Griffin led her squadron. In a coordinated attack that broke the Cathara formation within minutes, the biofighters were individually powerful, but they had never faced opponents who could think and react as quickly as humans. Each human pilot was making split-second decisions based on years of training in combat situations that would have terrified most galactic species. Griffin to Vengeance. Laura's voice came over the comm. Enemy fighters are scattered and running. We're pursuing to prevent them from regrouping. Meanwhile, the Vengeance continued its assault on the two cruisers. Dr. Hayes had identified what appeared to be nerve clusters and circulation systems in the bioships. The tactical team was targeting these areas with surgical precision. We're getting through their defenses, Martinez reported. Target 1 is showing massive system failures. I think we've damaged its central nervous system. The first assault cruiser suddenly stopped firing and began drifting through space. Its biolights flickered and dimmed as the massive creature entered what appeared to be a coma-like state. Major Brooks, Kate called. There's your boarding opportunity. Take your people and secure that cruiser before it recovers. Yes, ma'am. Ryan responded enthusiastically. Within minutes, 2 Marine shuttles had launched from the Vengeance and were approaching the disabled Cathara ship, the second assault cruiser. Seeing its companion fall, began broadcasting urgent messages toward the main Cathara fleet. But the Vengeance's electronic warfare systems jammed most of the transmissions, allowing only fragments to get through. They're calling for help, Dr. Morgan reported from her communication station. But I don't think their main fleet is getting a clear picture of what's happening here. Good, Kate said grimly. Let's keep it that way. On the disabled Cathara cruiser, Major Brooks led his Marines through corridors that looked more like the inside of a giant animal than a spacecraft. The walls pulsed with a slow rhythm like a heartbeat, and bioluminescent strips provided dim lighting throughout the ship. This is really creepy, muttered Sergeant Danny Clark as his squad moved through what appeared to be a major artery of the ship creature. It's like we're inside some kind of space whale. Stay focused, Ryan commanded. Through the CUM system. We need to find their command center and any prisoners they might be holding. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency through the alien ship. They had trained for boarding actions in every type of environment Earth could provide. From underwater facilities to high-altitude installations, a living spaceship was unusual, but they adapted quickly to the new challenge. Major called Corporal Lisa Wong from the point position. I've found something. Looks like a control room, but there are creatures inside. Ryan moved forward too. Join her. Through a translucent membrane that served as a wall, they could see several Cathara warriors working frantically at what appeared to be biological control systems. The warriors were trying to wake up their ship, but the damage the Vengeance had caused was too severe. Breach and clear, Ryan ordered. It's non-lethal if possible, but protect yourselves first. The Marines used shape charges to open the membrane wall and stormed into the control room. The Cathara warriors, surprised by the sudden attack, tried to fight back with hand weapons that fired organic projectiles. But human military equipment, designed to work in the electromagnetic storms and radiation fields around Earth, was far superior to anything the bioweapons could produce. Within minutes, the Cathara command crew was subdued and secured. More importantly, the Marines had control of the ship's biological systems. Vengeance, this is Brooks, Ryan reported. We have secured the target. Minimal resistance, 5 prisoners taken, and we have access to their ship systems. The space battle was reaching its conclusion. The second assault cruiser, damaged and alone, was trying to retreat toward the main Cathara fleet, but Captain Laura Griffin's fighters were harassing it constantly, preventing it from building up. Speed for escape. Captain Commander Thompson reported, we can finish off that cruiser easily. Should we destroy it or try to disable it as well? Kate considered the options. 2 captured Cathara ships would provide valuable intelligence, but keeping them both secure would stretch her resources thin. Let's disable it if possible, but don't take unnecessary risks. The Vengeance moved in for the final attack, its weapons targeting the fleeing cruiser's nervous system with precision strikes. Within minutes, the second bioship had also fallen into a comatose state, drifting helplessly through space. Supreme. Warcast Thracknell stared at his tactical displays in shock. 2 assault cruisers and 50 fighters defeated by a single human ship. The reports coming back from the battle were almost impossible to believe. The humans had not just won, they had won easily, taking prisoners and capturing ships intact. Warcast. Subcast Vierenkel said nervously, the humans are broadcasting a message to our fleet. Supreme Warcast Thracknell stood before the massive bioscreen in his command chamber, surrounded by his most trusted officers. The entire Cathara fleet had gathered in formation around their flagship, nearly 200 ships creating a wall of living metal and flesh between the human vessel and the Zephyrian homeworld. This ends now, Thracknell declared, his voice echoing through the organic corridors of his ship. We will show these humans what happens when someone challenges the Cathara Empire. All ships, advance and attack. The biofleet moved forward like a living tide, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and intimidation. For 3 centuries, this site had caused enemy fleets to surrender or flee in terror. But the USS Vengeance held its position, alone against impossible odds. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Captain Kate Rodriguez watched the approaching armada with calm determination. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, each person focused. On their duties, despite facing the largest space battle in human history, Captain, reported Lieutenant Tom Wilson, were receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian moon base. Elder Velcetan's face appeared on the screen, his large eyes filled with worry and gratitude. Captain Rodriguez, you have already done more for us than we ever dared hope. But please, do not sacrifice your ship and crew for our sake. The Cathara fleet is too large. You should retreat while you still can. Kate smiled at the elderly alien. Elder, my species has a saying. We don't leave friends behind. Your people asked for help, and we're going to see this through. But Captain, Velcetan protested, your ship cannot fight 200 vessels alone. You're right, Kate agreed. One ship can't fight 200. That's why we're not alone. She nodded to Lieutenant Wilson, who activated a new communication channel. Suddenly, the space around the Cathara fleet filled with new contacts as dozens of human ships dropped out of hyperspace. The reinforcements had arrived just as Kate had planned. This is Admiral Marcus Stone aboard the USS Liberty, came a voice. Over the come, Captain Rodriguez. Sorry we're late to the party. Hope you save some enemies for the rest of us. The Cathara fleet found itself surrounded by 30 human warships, each one as advanced and deadly as the Vengeance. Thracknell stared at his displays in shock as he realized he had been completely outmaneuvered. Impossible, he whispered. Our long-range sensors detected nothing. Subcast Viarncole checked his instruments frantically, or a cast they must. Have some kind of stealth technology. Their ships appeared without any advance warning, but the truth was simpler than that. The human fleet had approached using tactics developed during Earth's naval wars, staying hidden behind asteroids and using the system's gas giant to mask their energy signatures. The Cathara, used to fighting peaceful civilizations that announced their presence openly, had never learned to watch for such deception. All ships, Admiral Stone's voice carried across the battlefield. This is a rescue operation. Our goal is to save the Zephyrian people and drive off the invaders. Rules of engagement are flexible. Destroy anything that threatens civilians, but accept surrenders when offered. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved in coordinated formations, their tactics perfected through centuries of warfare on and around Earth. They struck the Cathara fleet from multiple directions simultaneously, using the three-dimensional nature of space combat to maximum advantage. Major Ryan Brooks, still aboard the captured Cathara cruiser, provided real-time intelligence about enemy ship weaknesses to the human fleet. All ships target the neural clusters at the base of their weapon systems. Those bioships go down fast if you can disrupt their nervous networks. Cathara fought back with desperate fury, but their organic weapons were no match for human plasma technology. Ships that had terrorized peaceful civilizations for centuries found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by vessels designed to survive in the hostile environment around Earth. Captain Laura Griffin led her fighter squadrons. In devastating attacks on Cathara support vessels, the human pilots moved through enemy formations like wolves among sheep. Their ships' superior speed and maneuverability allowing them to strike and retreat before the biofighters could respond. Griffin to Fleet Command, Laura reported over. The enemy fighter screens are breaking down. Their pilots don't know how to handle coordinated attacks. The Cathara had built their empire by conquering species that had never learned to fight, but humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. And the difference was becoming brutally apparent. Supreme Warcast Thracknell watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and realized he faced a choice he had never had to make before. His empire could continue fighting and lose everything, or they could do something the Cathara had never done in their history of conquest. They could surrender. Human Admiral Thracknell broadcast on an open channel. I request to speak with your fleet commander. Admiral Stone's weathered face appeared on the Cathara flagship's screens. The human looked like he had been fighting wars his entire life, which was not far from the truth. "I'm Admiral Marcus Stone. Are you ready to discuss terms?" Terms. Thracknell was confused. In Cathara warfare, there were only victory and death. "I do not understand this concept." "Surrender terms," Stone explained patiently.
Ouch.
"You withdraw all your forces from this system immediately and permanently. In exchange, we allow your surviving ships to leave safely. You also return any Zephyrian prisoners you've taken and provide compensation for the damage you've caused." Thracknell's mandibles clicked with amazement. "You would allow us to retreat, even though you have won the battle?" "That's how civilized." "Species conduct warfare," Stone replied. "We fight to protect people, not to commit genocide. Though if you prefer to keep fighting, we're prepared for that too." Around the Cathara flagship, the human fleet maintained perfect formation. There. Weapons trained on the bioships but not firing. The message was clear. The humans were offering mercy. But they were also ready to finish the battle if necessary. For the first time in his 300-year military career, Thracknell made the decision to retreat. "We accept your terms, human. Admiral, the Cathara fleet will withdraw from this system." The next few hours were tense as the Cathara ships began their evacuation. True to their agreement, they released several thousand Zephyrian prisoners who had been held on their ships. The humans maintained watch over the withdrawal, ensuring that no bioships remained hidden in the system. Elder Velcetan stood in the main chamber of the moonbase, watching through the viewing ports as Cathara ships departed his star system. For the first time in 6 months, round him, other Zephyrian survivors wept with joy and relief. "It is over," he whispered. "We are free." Captain Rodriguez materialized beside him as her transport beam finished bringing her to the moonbase. The human captain looked tired but satisfied as she watched the last of the enemy fleet disappear into hyperspace. "Not just free," Kate said gently. "Safe. The human fleet will maintain a permanent garrison here to make sure that Cathara never come back." "Captain Rodriguez," Velcetan said, his voice filled with emotion. "How can we ever repay you? You have saved our entire civilization." Kate smiled at the elderly alien. "You already have repaid us, Elder. You sent out a call for help, and that call brought our species together. It's more valuable than any payment." Over the following weeks, the real work began. Human engineering teams helped the Zephyrians rebuild their cities using both human construction techniques and Zephyrian crystal growing technology. The combination produced structures that were both beautiful and strong enough to withstand future attacks. Dr. Peter Hayes worked with Zephyrian scientists to establish research exchanges between the two species. The Zephyrians shared their advanced energy manipulation technologies, while humans provided knowledge of defensive systems and military strategy. "God, it's remarkable," Dr. Hayes told Captain Rodriguez as they watched human and Zephyrian engineers working together on a new city design. "In just a few weeks, we've learned more about peaceful coexistence than our species managed in thousands of years of Earth history." Major Brooks established a training program for Zephyrian volunteers who wanted to learn basic defensive techniques. The sessions were carefully designed to teach protection and deterrence rather than aggressive combat, respecting the aliens' peaceful nature while giving them tools to defend themselves. "The key is to make sure they never have to become warriors. Like us," Ryan explained to his human officers. "They should learn enough to protect themselves, but not so much that they lose what makes them special." As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, other civilizations began reaching out to both humanity and the Zephyrians. Species that had lived in fear of the Cathara Empire for centuries were amazed to learn that the seemingly invincible conquerors had been defeated. Admiral Stone received communication from dozens of alien governments, some asking for protection, others offering trade agreements, and a few requesting help in driving Cathara forces from their own systems. "Looks like we've opened a door we can't close," the Admiral told Captain Rodriguez during one of their planning meetings.